It is in Japan and second largest university, and our university museum is the largest university museum in Japan. And so I'm working on the mammals and the species diversity and biogeography in Japan and also Asian countries. And today I especially focus on the diversity in Japanese species. Um, and as everyone knows that the Conservation International set up many biodiversity hotspots, and Asian countries are the very important area of the hotspot in the world. And also the Japan, all of the Japanese areas are the hotspot areas designated as Japan and by Conservation International. Why the Japanese, what to characterize the biodiversity hotspot of Japanese species? Maybe it is higher endemic elements and isolated in the island, because Japanese countries consist of 6,000, about 6,400 islands, including a very small island. And such islands are thought to be sort of have been important for the speciation and species diversity. And such kind of the high species diversity is a little bit different from the Southeast Asian countries. But anyway, the Japan is important to understand the island, the biogeography, and the species diversification. This is the map of the Japanese island, and from here, and this is the Sakhalin of Russia, but from here, like Hokkaido, and this is the largest island of Japan, Honshu, number 3, and this is the Shikoku, and this is Kyushu. And please remember, number 6 is that it's Tsushima Island. It is located between Kyushu and Korea. And also, in south to the Kyushu, and many islands located between the Kyushu and Taiwan, and such chain, island chain, we call Ryukyu Island. And Ryukyu Island consists like Osumi Group, Tokara Group, Amami Group, Okinawa Group, Daito Group, Miyako Group, Yaeyama Group, Senkaku Group from the north to the south. Importantly, this is between the 8 and 9, this line we call the Tokara tectonic strait. It is seawater more than the 1,000 meter depth, and it is thought to be to separate Japanese fauna. This is this line, and the nose we call the Japanese element, like from the Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and that area. And also, it is characterized by the species of palearctic element. However, such southern, central, and southern Ryukyu Island have a different fauna from the Japanese island, and such Ryukyu Island fauna is considered oriental element. And this line is just like the same, and to continue to the Yangtze River, and maybe such a boundary of the Palearctic and the Oriental region, and continued and from the continental boundary, and that's why we separate the two regions, Japanese island and Ryukyu Island. However, for the small mammals, Ryukyu Island and the number of species and very limited. And therefore, today, the main topic in the first part is about Japanese island and the species. Okay, and this is both Japanese and Japanese island and the Ryukyu island, and all of the Japanese small mammals, and a number of species like Eulipotyphla, 20 species, and Chiroptera bats, 37 species, Rodentia, 30 species, and shown by each family. And the right one is endemic taxa. And for example, Eulipotyphla and like the Solicidae, shrew, and like the including a Procidura, Solex, and the 12 species in Japan, and the 6 species of them. So the 50% is endemic species in Japan. And also the Talpidae, 4 genus, 8 species, and 3 genus and 7 species are endemic species in Japan. As such, and the Japanese and taxa and the species are characterized by higher endemism. However, and see the like Chiroptera, and it's the rate of the endemism is not so high, and like especially the highest 7 species is the Vespertilionidae, and it is but 25 species and 7, so less than 25%. And Rodentia, also, and some and okay, some species and high and but the like the Muridae, 15 species and 6 species, and the school species. That. And so the different endemic ratio and among the group, but in total, and the Japanese species characterized by the higher endemic and higher rate of endemic species, and even endemic genus for some groups in the Talpidae and the Muridae. And these 2 genus in the Muridae, endemic species, in the only found in the Ryukyu island. Okay, and as some I already introduced, and the Japanese island and the mammals. And the Japanese island, it is, as mentioned, paractic element. It's a northern part of the main island of Japan, and it's consisted of Hokkaido, Honshu, and Shikoku and Kyushu, whole larger island, main island. But also, there are many small peripheral islands to the Tokara tectonic straits, and from such a small island like Sado Island or Izu Island group, or the Oki Island, or this is I mentioned Tsushima Island between Kyushu and Korea, and in the south and the Tanegashima Island or the Yakushima Island. Yaku Island is a very and famous, or the like the kind of one of the World Heritage. And so, and how is the origin of the Japanese mammals? It is so that main islands formed land bridge in the glacial period, and there were 2 routes from the north and far eastern north northeastern Russia to Sakhalin and Hokkaido, and another is in southwest. It is from Korea and by Tsushima and Kyushu, and then and eastern go eastward to the Honshu and Shikoku. It is a two route. This route and the southwestern route and the northeastern route as the origin of the Japanese mammals, and in traditionally, such migrated species are isolated in Japanese islands, and then say and then speciated and subspace forming speciation or the subspeciation. And on the other hand, in the Ryukyu Island, and it is the oriental element, and it is between the Tokara tectonic strait and Taiwan, and but it's a central Ryukyu, and this area is highly endemic, and so to have been isolated since at least since the Miocene. And so such isolated elements that are very old, including Amami rabbit or the some special the rats and two genus and whole species of rats. And however, the southern part of the Ryukyus, I will talk later again, and between close to the Taiwan and still uncertain, and because number of mammals are very limited. Okay. Okay, so wait a moment. Uh, Japanese island and mammals. I'm sorry, my computer. The apart original population from the two different ways. And in such isolation and migration and isolation process, and the previous assumption is that first is directional migration and non-reversal. It means a Japanese island at the end of the animal dispersal. The animals come from the continent and then go to the Japanese main island from the northeast or the southwest, and then from main island and go to the peripheral island, but never and from peripheral island to main island or main island to the continent. And such is the one direction and the migration and Japan island are thought to be and the end final end of the animal destination. And the second one is each island is a unit of each island a unit of understanding. So no diversification within each one island, and morphological genetic changes in island and responsible for isolation. So the one island isolated and some diversification occurred, and but so the not nothing and in the within the island and the two within island some the diversification never occurred because such island is the isolating unit. Okay, however, and some interesting animal. It is Apodemus speciosus and the Japanese field mouse. And these animals, this species is very common and everywhere in Japan. We say that everywhere in Japan, and very popular and from the lowland and to the forest and various habitat. And in the morphology, very old time, and the researcher pointed out that Hokkaido population is distinct from the others. Oh, sorry, once sorry, Continue again. And that is island Hokkaido is distinct and larger from the Honshu and the main island. And another is like this shows the D and the peripheral island population and showed larger body size and larger hind foot or something like that. And such morphological previous studies showed that and compared to the main island and Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, Hokkaido population become larger and other island population and also they become larger. But at a similar time and already half century ago, and one professor studied the karyotypes and the chromosome number are distinct, different between the east and the west. And this is the type of Robertsonian and translocation and 2N48 individuals in the east Japan, including Hokkaido and eastern Honshu. And 46 and in the western and the Honshu, also the Shikoku and the Kyushu. And also the hybridized individual, the 2N47 F1 individual, also found in the such the hybridizing areas, hybrid zone. And so, and this pattern and the very and interesting at the time. So the Japanese in Japan and small country Japan and animal and showed such and quite different east-west diversification, but such pattern is not and concord with such morphological pattern. And so the for a long time and many researchers focus on this and topics. What happened the Honshu. And in this century, and the developing of cytochrome B gene and molecular techniques, and Dr. Suzuki of Hokkaido University and studied and gene phylogeography. And this showed also very interesting and unexpected finding that in the Honshu and this and no diversification. Even the karyotype showed the eastern western diversification, but this and the cytochrome B gene and showed nothing. However, and the Hokkaido population and quite different, distinct from those. Also, such island like Sadogashima, Sado Island, or the northern Ryukyu and the Izu Island group, and showed distinct grades. Okay, and this pattern a little bit and similar and to this pattern, but like this show and the Oki Island showed distinct morphology from the main island. However, in the cytochrome B gene, this Oki Island show completely and similar clade cluster and with the mainland Honshu. So such is some difference, but so such and the important part show the similar and more than the karyotype diversification. Okay, and so Japanese island, the paraclitic element. So the previous study, the morphology, and like one, maybe we separate two. One is Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu main island. However, that is distinct, different. One is Hokkaido and peripheral island. Almost all the peripheral island. However, the karyotypes and the east and west population and the show divergence and the boundary is in the central Honshu mountain. Also, the hybridization is occurred. And the mitochondrial DNA cytochrome B gene, that is Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and almost same, and like the morphology, and plus some peripheral island that shows the completely and the similar sequence pattern. However, and the distinct one, the Hokkaido, and some among the peripheral island, Sado Island, Izu Island, and northern Ryukyu Island show the distinct. And but so the peripheral island and the split into the Hokkaido and such island we call genetically remote island. This is genetically and the cross island. cross or like inclusive island. So this show again the question: how is east-western diversification in Honshu? And the second is the peripheral island, the pattern of the diversification. Okay, so I am a student and studied such topics. So the first we check it this Apodemus speciosus, check the external morphology, and from the such the specimen from the Hokkaido and to the Oki Island, the Izu Island, the Sado Island, the Tsushima Island, and the northern Ryukyu, and check the body and dimension. Okay, also this is a hind foot of the Apodemus speciosus. There is like the part and there is the foot part and there there is a variation in the some individual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 part, and some individual like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 part. This HP and is some individual have some this one HP hypotenuse part is some individual have and some individual doesn't have, and some individual in the right hand no the right foot and right side 6 or the left side 5 or such variation. And this is the number of such, and this white bar, and showed this hypotenuse part is nothing, and in both right and left. And this one is that is present on the, so the number of the part is black one is 6 and 6, and white and one and the 5, 6. So this is the mainland and the Honshu number 2 to number 9 is the mainland main island, and the Honshu, Kyushu, Shikoku. It's a pattern, and mostly some variation, but so this one dark gray, and it's 6 and 6, and so about 2/3 of individuals, 60%, 70% individuals have such a hypotenuse part. But maybe 30-40% individual doesn't have. However, these and the rectangle and the showed island population. Like some island population, almost all the individual, like the Tokara Nakanoshima Island, 51, and the individual, only the nothing, and the 5 and 5, and only the 3 individual, but the only, and then not the 6 and 6, and the 5 and 6, or something like that. And such the blue one, and shows maybe the increase of the percentage of the loss of the hypotenuse part. And like many islands show the change and such the ratio, especially like also the Tokara Nakanoshima and also the Tsushima Island. It is 26 examined and 25 individuals lost the hypotenuse part. Okay, on the other hand, and that one is opposite side, maybe almost like the 6 and 6, and they have hypotenuse part like this one, and Ki Oshima, or in its island, the Nijima and Kozushima, and maybe, and so this is interpreted that in Ireland, the small and the population size and isolated some and genetic drift or something such kind of effect, and make change of such occurrence of the hypotenuse part. But interestingly, Hokkaido and Sadogashima and showed no and quite difference and from the other main island Honshu, main island of Japan. Okay, so and that is maybe qualitative and difference, but how is the quantitative or the size difference between the main islands of Japan, main islands population, and the peripheral island population. And peripheral island population showed body weight and generally become larger in most population, and also hind foot become larger. And it is also known from the past time, and it is considered that to be related to the island rule. Maybe in the 1967, I think seven, and Foster proposed the concept of island rule in rodents in the island, and become the animal population become a larger body size. However, okay, it looks following the such island rule, peripheral island population become larger body weight and larger hind foot. But we also check the head and the body length. It is a body dimension. Like the Kinki and Chugoku, it's a Honshu population, and Tsushima and Tokara Nakanoshima, and that is the island population. It is head and body length is no difference between the main island and the peripheral island. Okay, so the head and the body size, so the body length and no change, but the body become larger, body weight become larger, so the maybe become fat, and but the body length and no difference, and the hind foot become larger. But we also found at this time we measured this H means the head length, head length in the from in external morphology. And so this HR, head ratio, it is in the main island, head ratio is like this, and 28.3 and 29.0. I 29.96 in male, and the female also 28.4 to 29.5 to 30.38. Okay, that means head body length is not changed, but the ratio of the head and become larger, and in comparison to the body size. So I now wonder, it is not simply the island rule and showing the body size change. Maybe also the body proportion and the change, also such allometric difference, allometric change is caused by fat, and it is still, and we are continuing and such research. Okay, and then so the next, and we examine the skull, and this skull, and we examined in this study, and 2016, and we checked the 1,416 and skull specimen, because the Apodemus speciosus is very popular, and so we collected the much such a much specimen from over the Japanese regions, and we used, and this time we used the geometric morphometric techniques, and maybe the photographing, and maybe setting the landmarks, and checking a change, and from Hokkaido and to the northern Ryukyu, and from such locations, and we examined the specimen. So, and this and is kind of a little bit summarized. This is the center of the site, and the center of the site is please understand that is the size of the skull, and this is the relative one, and it is kind of the shape difference. Okay, and this and this the maybe line, this line show the east and west, western and the Japanese Honshu. And that means because the karyotype shows the difference between the east and western and Japan. And so we compare such things and the east and west, and how is there the difference in the size or shape. However, and it is no, and these two and outlines overlap very well, and we couldn't find any and morphological scale difference in size and shape and between the east and western Honshu. And this another the colored plot, and that shows the island population, and that is separated by the color by the region. But so the no and not so much clear and division between the such color pattern. However, and such plots, and you can see that they and located. This is in male and both female, and located in the line, and that means the central size is and maybe in the average, and is larger than these main island population. So that says the peripheral population in the color, and showed largest scale size compared with the main island population. Okay, so and in all together with external morphology, like the head body length, no change, body weight, and larger, and hind foot larger, head legs larger, and the skull become larger. However, and so and some and morphology and I'm now seeing not so clear tendency, but like this, consider kind of the allometric changes, and depending on the centroid size increase. Okay, and this is another analysis of the non-metric multidimensional scaling, MDS analysis, and Mahalanobis distance. Okay, this shows this is in the center, and it is the eastern and the western and the Japanese main island. And maybe this right side is male and female, and the skull and the mandible. And so it is. It also shows that in the eastern and the western and no divergence are found. But island populations located in the surrounding and of those areas, and that mean and the peripheral island population that show the difference from the main island population. How and including both genetically and the remote island and the closer island. And also, it is interesting that but the such island population showed no and clear clustering pattern, and that mean that and each island population and showed also the island involved island specific and diversification, and so maybe and some effect happen in the island, peripheral island, and should be and considered from the and shared region, and like the size increase or something, and also and some and the island specific and the region and our background, and to be considered. Okay, so in Japanese field mouse, Apodemus speciosus, and it is maybe, and this is we almost follow and the previous morphological studies. Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Hokkaido, the peripheral island, and they become some size difference, but the no and the body dimension that change in the HB, and but some and the body parts become larger, hind foot and the head or skull, and also some population like tail length, and but also the plus and each island and the specific variation have been occurred. So the almost all the peripheral islands show the morphology, but cytochrome B gene that showed no divergence between the main island of some peripheral island. So what happened? And still, it is a question. And but so the Apodemus speciosus studies show the east-west diversification in Honshu must have occurred, but now no divergence and genetic exchange and is ongoing. And the peripheral island showed genetic and non-genetic divergence, and that's why then I and see the background of such and pattern, and maybe I and edited this book, Species Diversity of Animals in Japan, and 2017, and published by Springer. And in that book, and in the chapter 1, I wrote land emergence. I proposed land emergence and elevation shift of effect, and therefore, and the possible understanding of the Japanese island and the diversification, hopefully, and can be applied to other islands or other continental population too. So this is a kind of the modeling elevation distribution in present and LGM. And because Apodemus speciosus is, I mentioned that is everywhere occurred. And meter. And in the high mountain, and such Apodemus speciosus is not occurred. And maybe the another congenic species, Apodemus argenteus, more English. So, and like the present time, and okay, we make a we postulate that the present distribution of Apodemus speciosus potential distribution is 0 to 1,000 meter. This in the white region, such one, and more than 1,000 meter region is like black one. Almost the only in this central part of Japan, Honshu or Japan, and other some and higher mountains, but not so big areas. So that's why we have and images that and okay, this group, this animal is everywhere in Japan, but actually not everywhere. And of course, and this is and some and more the habitat type or something affect the, so the real distribution of course should be the much restricted, but this is only the elevation and the potential and distribution region, and from this and some areas are not distributed, so we should consider that. But and also and we estimate the last glacial time, and temperature become lower, and also the higher mountains become and glacial region, and so such higher animal also the coming down, elevation down, and if down, and so also I saw that Apodemus speciosus and coming down. I'm not sure how and they and come down the elevation, but we this is just our postulate 500 meter. Okay, that's 1,000 meter to 500 meter, and so 500 meter go down, and last glacial time in Japan, like the coastal region, and maybe some land emerged by the sea level and down, and therefore in this map, almost 100 minus 140 and to 500 meter shown as white. Okay, so and you can see that this is black areas and maybe more than 500 meters and okay expanded so much. If and only this is just only the elevation, but so the much more effect. But even and considering only the elevation, maybe Apodemus speciosus, a lowland species and the distribution areas and should have and narrow and limited and fragmented in the LGM. Okay, in the glacial time, we often considered about the higher elevation species, but the lower elevation species have more effect by the isolation, by the mountain. Interestingly, this central mountain in the areas are nearly the very big block and black areas, black block, and it you can see that if the white area Apodemus speciosa distribute, this the east western population cannot go to the east, and eastern population cannot go to the west, and this becomes a big and potential boundary of that. And okay. So, and this is elevation shift. So this species two, this is Apodemus, and I and considered, and it is if the 500 meter and to the minus 140 meter, and so okay, this and the minus areas not the colored, but this areas. And so, and this time, and maybe white and black is not suitable for the Apodemus speciosus, and completely the eastern and the western population must be blocked chromosome. However, now the time and it is and this is also the high mountains here, and but and this like the following the body and like the inner body, or the okay, this is Fuji mountain, and but this and this line, or the maybe also the in the north, and it's this Kurobe area, and several the corridors and formed is homing and the lower elevation areas, and actually Apodemus speciosus is distributed there. I think so that now eastern population and western population can exchange the and interpret by such that using such corridors and gem and making a hybrid, and no for and not home genetic mitochondrial DNA cytochrome B gene divergence, and east and west not found because of such interbreeding by the using such corridors. So this shows that in the present time and LGM, even within the island, okay, so previously we think and the east and west, what become the factor of barrier like the mountain or something. But now my idea suggest that in the east and west and such mountain, and depending on the time becomes the ice barrier, or sometimes become the corridor. And so and we don't need to think about the 100% and the barrier, but sometimes such the and changing from 100% isolation and to the 0% isolation. That is, we and define it as connectivity and between the east and the west, or between the population. What is the connectivity? Okay, and the elevation shift and make the connectivity changes. Okay, so the reconstruction and the modeling the Apodemus speciosus distribution in now and the potential elevational distribution 1,000 meter, but in LGM map maybe we postulated that is minus 40 meter to 500 meter. So in the RGM and the cold time, high mountain mass and topography become a barrier for east-west population. But in present time, such become the contact area, like the dispersal corridors, and maybe they cross and make a gene flow possible, and the gene flow between the such population. And so elevation effect, but it's not simply understand it because it's depending on the topography. And elevation change must have been and changed in time. And because now I show the only the LGM and the present time, but from the LGM and the present time such that making a change. Okay, so the how was change. For example, and this is before the post-glacial, and like the glacial time, glacial maximum, and black area become larger and larger. This is become then the warming again and warming again, and then the LGM and the present, and that makes the corridor. And during the maybe connectivity also changing in time, and maybe of the population connection or the population and the separation split, and depending on the topography, and we can trace and such timeline of the using the connectivity concept, and we can understand the more correctly, and also the following the phylogeographic pattern of molecular studies. Okay, this is not the such the same species, but so this is the two more species in Japan, and it is the east boundary, also the following, and also the similar, and to the Apodemus speciosus. Maybe, and also that these more species are also in the lower elevation species. Maybe, and similar explanation or the similar event can be found by and explained by the connectivity and the concept. Okay, so how is the peripheral island? I think it is also not only the isolation and all more the connectivity, because some, and this is the main island, and this is island and some island. But in the glacial time, the land areas become larger, and so the animal populations go such areas. Now, often and think that this population go to the island, but actually they go to those areas, and then become the warmer again, and these areas become the sea, and these population they're making a shrinkage, and that one and the connectivity and between the main island and the continent island. Also the between the maybe the some example in this area. For example, this is that this is the importance that the Kyushu and the Tsushima. It is an area of the migration and the southwest migration and to the Japan. What happened? I think so that okay, this is the Tsushima, and this here the Korea, and this is the Kyushu and the Western Honshu. I make a line like the 60 meter and the green 100 meter of sea depths, and the 40 meter and in the purple, and that show the previous studies, and they say that maybe if 140 meter and this Kyushu, Honshu connected to Tsushima, okay, this is another island we call Iki Island. Iki Island also connected. So in the last LGM time, a Kyushu population can go there and also can go there, and then make the exchange. However, and correct, but though also this 140-meter, but Tsushima Island may be surrounded by the 100-meter and depth sea. And therefore, if Tsushima are connected with the Kyushu by the sea level lowering, but that time is very limited. And then once the population come here and very soon isolated when warming becomes starting. However, like this Iki Island, that is 6 meter. So in the LGM, it is completely the part of the such main island, part of the island. Maybe however, on the other hand, in the LGM, and this island is maybe this area still the more deeper and area, so not the part of the main island, and almost nearly the some and keeping such the isolate the geographic geomorphological isolation and from such areas, even the connected by the land bridge. But this is different, and the 60-meter, and so this island for a long time after warming, after LGM, and still be the part of the main island. Okay, so if the warming come and stay the Tsushima Island, and such population become easily and to be unique by the isolation and such area and the shrinkage of from these areas. However, okay, the Iki Island not the islands. Okay, such kind of the modeling, and I want to do, and all the Japanese islands, and how the time span of the connecting, and how is the pattern of this is like the this island like the part of the main island, and however some island like from the main island that to become the peninsula, or this is the part of the island, okay, the peninsula, or the for a long time, and almost the keeping the island isolation or something like. And such the connectivity can, I hope, and explain the morphological diversification in such island. Okay, the maybe and the issue shrinkage or the island area expansion, or sometimes genetic between the population between the island, such and this is the model, but I want to some evidence from such using Apodemus. Previously, the time and space isolation and or 100%, but the connectivity is 0 to 100%. Maybe the geography and something, and but the such effect also I think depend on the animal dispersal ability history and among the animal groups. Okay, so things in the near future. Okay, this is Shrew, one of my students, and come here and this time and study this shrew. This is also the addition to the Apodemus speciosus. It is some interesting diversification pattern in this Tsushima Island, and compared with the Kyushu Island and the region, and also the maybe comparative study and with Apodemus speciosus would be conducted. Okay, and oh, I'm not enough, but so another student come here, and Mr. Ikeda studied the Rhinolophus, but it was previously considered Rhinolophus, and to the Asian and such the bats. And however, he studies the comparison, and maybe this is a European population, and this is the Asian population, and using geometric morphometrics of skull, and he and confirmed, and also the find some diagnostic characters between European and Japanese Asian population, and he the Rhinolophus quinquinum in Europe and Rhinolophus nippon in Asia. And in the next step in the paper, and he studied the molecular phylogeography of the nippon, it's the Asian population, especially in Northeast Asia, in the Korea and Northeast China. And interesting to find the three and the distinct clusters, phylogroup. And this is a group, and the grade 1 in the east, grade 2 Western Japan, but grade 3 also in part of Kyushu, and also in the east, northeast China. And we are now thinking such three grade groups and formed after they migrated to Japan, and maybe by the climate change and some refugia in the LGM areas, and refugia formed such three grades. And this maybe come back to the Korea and Northeast China from Kyushu. After LGM, it becomes warmer, and because no, and before last second glacial time, and maybe reverse colonization, considering maybe the Korean and Northeast China and the population and genetic and variation is very low. I just explained, and but so the previously, so the maybe this becomes the evidence of the reverse colonization from Japan to the continent. Maybe it is to the flight ability in birds, but it is some the new explanation and expected for island animals. Okay, this is and finally, and I want to explain about the Ryukyu mammals. Maybe the central Ryukyu special animals, but the southern Ryukyus, this is the Miyako group, and this is Iliomote and the Yaeyama group, or the Senkaku group. And only these areas are 4 species of animals and effect animals. That is some mole and Apodemus, and to the Taiwan effect, and found in the only this Senkaku group. And Prionidus bengalensis, leopard cat, and the scroll wild boar. Maybe there's such the effect also by the, but it's not yet clear, but some effect of human or the some overseas dispersal. But as previously, no one cared about such native species, Ratus tanedumi, Norvegicus, or the excellence. And the excellence only one record, and not sure, and still in the Miyako Island there. No, or not. Or musculus, and the Suncus muridus, how shrew. Okay, in this year, I published a paper and the first record of lineage whole of Ratus tanedumi, and from the such and Ryukyu Island, from Miyako Island, and Yonaguni Island, or Taramajima Island. This is a pattern of the, and the red one is lineage 4, and the green one is lineage 2. And the lineage 2 is a little bit northern, but the Indonesia or something, the human bring them. But lineage 4 is thought to be occurred in the Indochina, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka or Indonesia and the Philippines. And also, and this time we found in the southern part of the Ryukyu. This island. And interestingly, in this Miyakojima Island, we found also it is not a big island, but it's very quite interesting to that is found in different places, but they're very close and by the car only 10 minutes or something. And okay, very interesting. And the lineage 4 and is recorded from the Japan for the first time. And but also it is Yonaguni south westernmost island of Japan, and the population are 2 individuals are closely related to the Philippines, Luzon, Sri Lanka. The Philippine Luzon. Philippine Luzon is maybe sample from Los Baños, and it is yes, and the previous study from Indochina, and maybe introduced human and dispersed to the Southeast Asia. Okay, the Yonaguni population is close there. Indochina population and some Indonesia, and this is Miyako, Taramajima Island is okay. From the Yonaguni, some difference from Yonaguni Island. It suggests grade 4, lineage 4, rats, Latus tanezumi, maybe from Japan to the Japan. And one oliver is related to the Luzon Island, and I see also need to be considered. But that's why I come here and to study on the Philippines. Okay, this is the lineage 2, and lineage 2 is Miyakojima, and it is maybe the very not the considerable variation, genetic difference from other like the Taiwan, Hong Kong, and that I mentioned I found lineage 2 and 4. But also another place interesting that previously reported is Philippines and Los Baños. And so it is what happened of these lineages. And they species, but some report in the China and said that and show that they may hybridize. I want to create a mystery. This is the morphology, and possibly some foramen among them, and but not clear. Maybe this is these two lineage 4, and this one is lineage 2, and maybe lineage 2 is more the pentagon shape, and maybe the more oval. Okay, the human introduced animal is the commensal species and expanded distribution with human. In Ireland, such human introduction are important event, and how the original human and come to the Ryukyu or the come to the and such areas. And also maybe the time of the European countries or the come to the Asia in the centuries, maybe trading on human. Until now, there's some fishery and it will explain and such dispersal. It is also applied to other species, maybe highly adapted to human life, like that, and extrans and house mouse, Murinus. In southern use, these 3 species possibly occurred and there and origin, and also interesting that. Okay, so this, but just and in this topic, maybe this human effect also make connectivity and disconnect. Oh, sorry, disconnectivity, the more complex pattern, and but more influenced by human movements and more than geographic location. Maybe so the need for of biological study, especially the genetic structure and also the human history. Okay, so this I saw the but so the still the many and the blank area, especially the Mare Peninsula or the some or something. This Tatus Tanezumi and things we study. So the change of connectivity is better than migration. And in my opinion, in contribute for understanding both of island and maybe it's connectivity only understanding of island. Also, the useful for the understanding of the continent population. So the elevation and the sea depth should be considered, and the species specific ability also important, and the human effect also important. Find out, and my question: what is the difference between the continent and islands? That I want to and okay. So my talk is uh, just a few minutes, and this museum, Kyoto University Museum, in 1907, and founded. And we this is I presented before the maybe research in University Museum, and maybe the research and collection is a very and the strong interaction, and that's why and the University Museum important. And maybe this is also I published Fishman be some voucher function of nature, or the voucher function or on the different function, and that such things produce a new research, and that's why also interesting and important, and should be and keep good in good condition in the jobs. Okay, and in recently the comparing I saw the Unimuseum. It is the University Museum and the normal museum, the university some function. Maybe University Museum management and this is creator development program like such that, or the graduate student and maybe hosting researchers or some maybe University Museum have many and merit and compare with university. I want to and use such merit for better and collection and the collection based research. Okay, and this is some like our activity like in the University Museum something that we can do that and with students and but so some University Museum specific some the university and activity on the some outside university or global activity. Okay, and this is okay. This year we made innovation of animal and corner of the museum exhibition, and this is recent members of the group, and maybe mostly student, and maybe this is some okay the sumo and Apodemus speciosus or something. This is oh no, and in the animal in Kyoto, and that's in our exhibition here. Okay, thank you very much, and that's all. And thank you for your listening, and thank you. I am very happy to have an opportunity to make a talk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Motokawa, for that informative talk. At this point, I would like to introduce our moderator for the open forum, Dr. Ana Pauline de Gia. Dr. de Gia is MNH curator for small mammals and is currently Professor 2 of Zoology at the Animal Biology Division of the Institute of Biological Sciences here at the College of Art Sciences in UPLB. Mom Pao, the Zoom space is yours.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Motokawa, for your wonderful talk. It reminded me of my research in Hokkaido University. So I also examined voles from Daikoku Island and observed the island effect of the populations there. So we will now be entertaining questions. So do you have questions? So while we are waiting, Dr. Motokawa, in case of morphological and genetic differences, how do you designate the population? Do you automatically designate it as a different species or subspecies first?
Okay, it's a very difficult question.
Yes.
And for my now it is the very special interesting. But so the for my and the idea anyway, we should understand the more of the correct history of diversification in the island or the other area and other geographic population. But after that, maybe my thinking is if the enough genetic divergence occurred, and also that is supported by the morphology, it is like under my shoe, like that Rhinolophus when and separate, and it can be should be the species, and but I'm still thinking how should do about like Apodemus island population that is some genetically not diversified, and but and clearly then showed morphological and divergence. Maybe now such is everyone knows that such is things. Maybe it suggests it should be the species. But and okay, I agree that. But some and the previous studies, some this different species and also the show and a similar pattern. Okay, so and we need to the device some taxonomic and basing on the maybe consistent concept of the species and the subspecies, but it is not now well defined in the world, and so it's the very big challenge for me. And but such island study the island population is not not only for the study of island. Maybe it will contribute how to understand like the maybe my student Okabe interested like in the mountain, like the sky, we call the sky island population, how to treat, or the some isolated population, how to treat, and maybe it's still challenging, and it's every day it's my question and our discussion in
Okay,
my
thank
group.
you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Motokawa. Do we have questions now from the audience? The case also of okay. So the question is, good morning, Dr. Motokawa. My question is, how do your findings help in conserving the species of mammals in Japan? Do you know their status in the IUCN index if they are threatened? And if so, what are the steps that we can take in order to conserve the species? So the question is, how do your findings help in conserving the species of mammals in Japan?
In Japan, for the IUCN, also the Japanese government and like this endangered status, and because so I participated on some status survey of Japanese animal, Japanese. It is so I such small island, and because area of distribution and is very important. So sometimes a small island population endangered or vulnerable, and such as some it's a very special rat, maybe genus Tokudaya in the Ryukyu Island. It is an endemic genus and of Japan, but also the 3 species in the and the very close island, and but also the another Diplothrix legata rat, and also the it in the and restricted to Central Ryukyu. So, okay, and I think it should be and very important to conservation. But I think that also the some species in main island of Japan or some island, but it's the distribution range is now still bigger, and therefore it is not the under the conservation status of the IUCN, and but and it some species should be added and for such and conservation issues. Maybe because the island and maybe okay, so it's a very changeable, and its population not so huge, big, and so it will be the future challenge. And maybe our concept and connectivity also I hope contribute to the designation of the conservation unit or something in near future. Thank you.
So, do you make recommendations for the various species, especially the island species? Do you make recommendations for their conservation?
Maybe not now.
Okay. So, but they are aware of your studies, right? Like your forestry, your environmental department is aware of your studies, of course.
Yes, I hope so. Yes. Also,
Okay, thank you.
our society have mammal society also sometimes recommend the government and the whole and recent based on the recent studies and about the conservation. Okay.
Okay. So it's the society. It's the mammal society. Okay.
Mammal
Yeah.
Society
Thank you.
of Japan.
Of Japan. Okay. Very active in conservation issues. So we have another question. Good morning, Dr. Motokawa. This is from Aaron James Ortega. My question is the recent rise of sea level and changes in climate conditions show significant impact on small mammal population in Japan, especially on smaller islands? Have it posed a threat, or do they exhibit resilience? So are the island populations, are they vulnerable to rising sea level and changes in climate conditions? So what is your opinion on that?
I think so. The actually said no study about that, but so the now Japan for small mammals, the topics of population or their habitat issue, by the one is increase of cicada. Of course, that partly and related to the some climate change or and maybe the producing the baby, the number of baby increasing. And because of cicada and maybe the damage on the maybe ground vegetation, and so the some many people think it is the serious damage on the small mammals. And also in the island that between Kyushu and Korea and the Tsushima Island, now the cicada increase. And another is in such island, in Tsushima Island, introduced and wild boar also increasing and give the habitat damage on that. In the Ryukyu Islands, now the working and maybe and control and work very successful, but like the introducing mongoose or some other and mongoose or mongoose are very and or the domestic feral domestic cat or dog are the more important and threatened for the small mammals in such island ecosystems. So the of this maybe especially like cicada or something is very closely related to the also the climate changes, and it is because sometimes so the in Japan and we don't know and clearly about the small mammal population changes, but I think so that some like balance of the and maybe replacement of the species and might be occurred in such small, especially the small island and the ecosystems or the fauna. Okay, and we still have much things not sorry, they're not clear and the answer.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Motokawa, and thank you, Aaron James Ortega, for the question. And also the question, the previous question was from Jomil Christian. Thank you very much. So I think we do not have time anymore for questions, right, Flor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Digia and Dr. Motokawa, and of course, to all of you, our audience, for an engaging open forum. Again, congratulations, Dr. Motokawa, for a wonderful presentation. So before we proceed to our closing, we will present. Please, we are reminding you to evaluate the webinar through the QR code flashed on the screen and through the link, which you can find in the chat box. Also, we are reminding you to input the correct details for your certificates. So this webinar is for our Zoom and YouTube participants only. So it is the responsibility of the evaluator to provide properly spelled name, correct and working email addresses. We will accept responses until 8 p.m. tonight. And now we would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Masaharu Motokawa. So University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and the UPLB Museum of Natural History presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Masaharu Motokawa for serving as resource person during the UPLB Museum of Natural History Biodiversity Seminar on Species Diversity and Evolutionary History of Small Mammals in Japan, held on September 19, 2022, 10 o'clock to 11:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time via Zoom. Signed by Marian P. De Leon, UPLB Museum of Natural History Director. So now you can see here social media information of the Museum of Natural History. please take note of our future webinars and follow our social media pages. We are on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.